welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Deducation, the Teachers Talking Terror podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are back with a movie that I think fits more into our wheelhouse of what we enjoy in horror. We are back this week to talk about 1991's Popcorn. Popcorn. I remember this tagline. Like I mentioned last week, we would watch a lot of. I watched a lot of horror movies on VHS growing up, and this was a trailer in quite a few of them. And I really hung on that tagline: "Buy a bag, go home in a box." That I'm like, oh, I love it. Like, it is what it is. So, Popcorn is probably a cult film at this point. Like, there's a lot of people in this movie that I'm like, hey, I know that guy, or I know her. Dee Wallace Stone was the mom from. She's been in all kinds of stuff. She was the mom in E.T., but she's also a big horror film staple. Hills Have Eyes, The Howling, Cujo's, Critter, Popcorn, The Frighteners. She's been in a lot of horror stuff. So she's one. She plays the mom in this one. Tom Villard is a guy that I've seen a lot. He plays, well, we'll get to his role later, but he's been at One Crazy Summer is a movie. It's just a lot of stuff watching in the 80s that I'm like, oh, I know that guy. I know that girl. Kelly Jo Minter is from some stuff. And then we got our lead here, Maggie, played by Jill Schoelen, a person that you said right pre-show, do you recognize the main character?
Yes.
I do and I don't. Any guesses? You said she looks familiar. We've covered a movie that she has been in. Any guesses on what it may be?
That's where it's hard because I feel like she was older in this movie.
She was. Not much. Not much.
I'm trying to rack our movies of teenage girls.
Yeah, she's 4 years older in this film than she was in the one we covered. Don't look it up.
I won't.
Okay.
I cannot put my name on it, though.
All right.
Or my tongue on it, my finger, whatever.
She was the teenage daughter in The Stepfather.
Yes, she was.
Yeah.
Stacy, Stephanie, what was her name? Stephanie.
Yep.
She was.
Yep, Stephanie. Now she plays Maggie in this one. She's a cute girl. I'm not, and it makes no difference. This is me being nitpicky. Not a big fan of that raspy voice.
I love the raspy voice.
I mean, again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's it doesn't feel like a leading lady kind of voice. So it bugged me in Stepfather, bugs me here. It makes no difference. It doesn't take anything away from the film. But it's just can't figure out do you got a larynx problem? Are you a smoker? Where's the rasp come from? So this movie is just about as far away from The Tenet as we could get. We've got I would say that they're college students. Would you say that they're college students?
They're doing pretty advanced things and the classes just look like college.
Yeah. So Maggie's a film student. She wants to be a screenwriter. Movie kicks off. She's having these dreams of some girl, Sarah. She's caught in a fire. Somebody's trying to record her, whatever. But it's a dream she has, pops into her head, and she's like, I gotta write this script. That's my ticket. I'm gonna make this movie. Meanwhile, her mom gets phone calls from what sounds like the same guy from the dream.
Yes.
Just really kind of monstrous, demonic sounding phone calls. So we fast forward to school. They're in film class at College University. And kind of reminded me some of Scream 2 here, where they're in the film class.
This movie very much so reminded me of the Scream movies.
And so you got Maggie and all of her classmates. They're sitting around because they need to raise money for their film department, and they're trying to come up with ideas to do so. And so they have an idea. Actually, Toby, it's kind of like, he's not a lead. Maggie's the lead, but Toby's like of her classmates, he's like the lead classmate.
Yeah. I love his idea, though.
Great idea.
How fun would it be to have a horror movie marathon? People are dressed up. The costumes were 10 out of 10. Like, loved everything about this.
I think you underestimate how much I would love to like put something like this on. Like,
yes,
we've talked a little bit because obviously you and I were, we have a relationship outside of the show.
Yeah.
And so just this last Thursday, we're part of a city mapping group to bring some fresh ideas to the community that might be able to lay the groundwork for some economic growth in our town. And
you make us sound so exciting.
Yeah, I know. Stay with us, but this is like some sort of tying something to film would be something I would love to see our town do. Small towns can have movie theaters. Small towns can make it survive, and I understand it's expensive and everyone, but we're not talking like a multiplex. We're talking just provide an opportunity to see a movie in a place that's not stupid expensive.
Yeah,
like. It is different if you're doing it as like a town outreach thing as opposed to I want to retire a millionaire off of this. Mm-hmm. I would love like that to me. If anybody out there, anybody listening, both of you, I would love for somebody to reach out and be like, can you help us plan the programming for our movie marathon?
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
Like, locally, I'm your guy. Like, if the theater in Canton was like, you know what, we want to do this. What are your thoughts? Like, I'm your guy. Yes. I understand that on paper, it all sounds like a piece of cake. There's rights issues. There's renting of, like, I get it. But man, that's one idea that I would love to see run with our mapping group is some sort of, even if it's a weekly outdoor movie drive-in, I don't care. It's something. Oh God, I would love to get my hands and be a part of something like that. But yeah, Toby's idea, like you said, let's have a horror movie marathon to raise money for our film department.
Yeah, great.
So they come, they go to like a local abandoned theater, the Dreamland Theater. This theater's going to be destroyed in like 3 weeks' time. Mm-hmm. So they've got 3 weeks to pull this together and pull it off. And so they get it all done. Like Toby gets help from, this guy that owns this like film memorabilia place. He lends over some of his, like props and things. They've got 3 movies lined up. It's not really a marathon if it's just 3, but whatever. But they got these 3 movies lined up and they're just these cheesy black and white, like just like 50s, 60s era, just B films. One of them is called Mosquito. Another one is called The Attack of the Amazing Electrified Man. And one is called The Stench. Now, you may not know this, but back in the day, William Castle, if I'm quoting this correctly, William Castle was a man who he would produce and make these films. And when they would go to theaters, they would have these gimmicks attached to them. Like, this is based on real stuff. Everything happened in this movie. Like, these were legit. They would what was the movie that we watched? Was it House on Haunted Hill or was it
where like the ghost
they'd fly in through the theater.
And I remember you saying like, I like that. And honestly, I liked this as a child. The Lilo and Stitch ride at Disney scared me because Stitch was crawling on your head. He was crawling under your feet, like that startled me as a child. And just, it pulls you in. Because
like there still are 3D films and that offers a similar layer of like, we're bringing it to you. But when theaters go all out and they do these things like the Attack of the Amazing Electrified Man, in the movie they use what they called shockoscope, where they wired these electric buzzers to the seats just to give us a small jolt. Nobody got hurt, but it was enough to shock you in surprise, not electric, but it surprised you, and they would use, like, they in the movie here they called it odorama, where they would pump certain smells into the theater that like lined up with whatever was going on in the movie. So those really happened. Like, that was a gimmick that was done quite often back in like the 50s and early 60s of these films, is this kind of gimmicky stuff. And so kind of a fun throwback, because they're going with this horror movie marathon and they're bringing this type of like immersive filmmaking or film watching experience. So as they're at the theater, though, they come across this short film called Possessor, which as they're playing it, it reminds Maggie of her dreams.
Mm-hmm.
She almost seems initially like she's upset because I had this dream and I wrote it down because I want to make this movie. And then they watch this short film that they like, again, it was like hidden, lost to time kind of thing. And they're watching it and it's like, she's almost bothered, like, but that's my movie.
Yeah.
Like somebody's already made it. Comes to find out the guy who made the movie, Lanyard Gates, which is a dumb name, Lanyard.
Yeah.
He actually killed his family while shooting that final scene in the movie, and then set the theater on fire. And so Maggie is in a spot where everybody's moved on. They've watched this short film and moved on, but Maggie's like, that's my dreams. Like, so she kind of gets obsessed over it, not in like a creepy way, but just like, I got to get to the bottom of this. Why are my dreams on film? So she talks to her mom about it. Her mom just kind of whatever, dismisses it.
Yeah.
But you need to quit this festival. You need to stop being involved with that theater. You need to get out of there. And so it kind of weird behavior on mom's part, but whatever. And then mom gets another one of those phone calls. What happens to mom?
Mom?
Suzanne. She gets a phone call.
Here? Well, remember
she gets
a phone.
Like,
sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, you're good.
The phone calls said, "Oh my gosh!" They answered a question and they asked a question. It was like, "You, oh my goodness, what was it?"
Well, it sounds like Gates. It sounds like Lanyard Gates on the phone, because it's that demonic voice that we heard in the dreams, but we now have seen in the movie Possessor. And he just keeps saying, and so he wants her to come to the Dreamland
this is where
theater.
mom's like kidnapped, isn't she? Basically, just like taken.
He tells her to come to the theater and bring a gun.
Yes.
And so she does show up at the theater. Well, all of these like visuals, they seem like hallucinations. Like she's just kind of over, and then she gets grabbed out of the shadows.
Right. And she's like yelling at him, like, stop it, like, don't do this. And okay, now I remember.
Yeah.
Like she's shooting at him at one point, like she shoots him.
Right.
But she doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this really weird, like it's the only part of the movie that just kind of felt out of place. But whatever. Cut to the movie marathon. Like, that's where we're at now. Maggie's working the box office. There was a situation earlier. It's pretty lame. Maggie is so dedicated to this film. Her boyfriend, Mark, runs up, and he's basically like, hey, Maggie, I want to just get naked with you and do things with you. And she's like, but Mark, I'm working on my film.
Yeah, I've got a movie.
And so he's like, well, whatever. I may not be here when you're ready. And so Maggie is working this film festival like 3 weeks later, not even that much time. And Mark shows up at the festival with a girl. Joy is her name.
Joy.
It doesn't matter.
Who is like the definition of like a bimbo, I feel
exactly. I was going to use that same word. She's a bimbo. So while she is distracted by Mark and Joy and almost like beside herself, like, you can't. I understand why you're upset, Maggie, but you did like brush him off several times. So as she's distracted by Mark, somebody walks up to buy a ticket, but calls her Sarah.
Yes.
We don't see who it is other than just it's got that same kind of Lanyard Gates voice.
Yeah.
Calls her Sarah. So now Maggie's like really beside herself because one, can't believe Mark's here with somebody else. Two, can't believe somebody just called me by the name of the girl in my dream.
Yeah.
So Maggie goes to just find somebody. She ends up finding Toby, tells Toby what's going on. Toby's the one that's kind of ringleading the movie marathon. Tells him, he's just like, whatever. Like, we got to get back to this. It is what it is.
Yeah. Like, we've got a marathon happening.
Right. So, you know, Mark feels bad for showing up with Joy. He goes to find Maggie. Meanwhile, one of the other people is Davis. Like,
yeah,
the only people that really matter are Maggie, Mark, and Toby.
Right.
The rest of them are just there. So one of the people, I think it's the professor. He's getting this giant mosquito ready because of this mosquito in 3D. Well, flying a big mosquito through the theater is going to be pretty effective. So while he's trying to get it in position, somebody starts running the remote controls down below. Yeah. And it flies into him and it pierces him, like stabs him right through the abdomen. So that's it for Davis. He's been stung by this giant mosquito. But what matters here is cut to some sort of backstage lab, presumably at the theater, but they're making a rubber latex copy of his face. Like they're making a mask out of this dead man's face. Like not in a Texas Chainsaw Massacre way where we like cut the face off and make a mask out of it, but they're using his likeness to create a mask in his representation. So, kind of weird. So that's the end of, so Mosquito is now over. Like none of the people in the audience are even remotely, like bothered by what's going on because it's all backstage. It's all behind the scenes. Like nobody knows about the fact that this guy just died. It doesn't matter. So they start the next movie, which I think this movie got more screen time than any of the other two. This is the Attack of the Amazing Electrified Man.
Yeah.
So cut to Bud, who he's in charge of the gimmick for this movie, the like shocking sensors under the seats. He's wheelchair bound. So he's getting these, but he needs help getting these seat shockers ready because he's wheelchair bound. Maggie, who is still supposed to be taking tickets, but is pretty much just doing whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, because at this point she's listening to the recorder that she's been carrying around all day. Like, okay, like what was I saying? And then it just like stops.
Yeah.
And she has this message from Gates.
Right. And so, she hits Mark, like she opens a door, hits Mark, knocks him down, but it also destroys a recorder. We see Davis again. Yeah. Now, we know it's not Davis.
Right. But Tina doesn't. And Tina is like, everyone wonders how I've been getting good grades. Well, let me tell you, like, I just do extra credit. No, she's doing the professor.
Yeah.
Who then she starts kissing and his face is melting off like literal just like goo, like slime just pulling off of his face.
Her face sticks to his face.
Yeah.
And as she's separating herself, it's like just this clear, like it's just like their faces are stuck. And it's pulling and pushing each other apart. So he then like just strangles her, kills her with a rope, just strangles her. Mark and Maggie, who again, Mark shows up at the movie with Joy, sits down, and then like immediately gets up and leaves her. Some other big dude in the theater just comes and sits next to her. Joy doesn't care. Mark and Maggie are together. They do find Tina. They find her shortly afterwards, but she appears to still be alive. Not in Davis's way, though. As Mark and Maggie are talking to her, as they leave, we cut back and finds out that whoever killed her, which looked like Davis, but we know it wasn't Davis because it was wearing a mask. The killer was like controlling her voice and her body from behind. Like,
yes.
So somebody is backstage at this movie theater killing the people involved with the movie marathon. So Bud, being the wheelchair kid, it's his time to shine. It's coming up on the big climax of the movie within the movie where he's going to hit all the seats.
Yeah.
Well, the killer comes up and basically straps Bud down, and then straps like electric chair items to Bud and connects him to his board. So all these things are like timed to go off at a certain time, including like the electrified helmet that Bud is wearing. Movie gets to that part, it ends, and it fires off, and Bud's electrocuted. The whole theater loses power. Like, and I love late 80s, early 90s, like pre-CGI electrification, where it's just like a bunch of blue noodles. They're just traveling through. I love it. But so he's being electrocuted. Actually, the electrification of the electrified man in the movie looked better than Bud's electrification, which is funny because it's like they made those movies to be in this movie. Those 3 movies that they showed are not real movies. They're made for this one. Oh, so Bud's gone. So now Davis is dead, but reanimated somehow. Tina's been dead, but appears to be alive. Bud is now dead.
And Maggie finds him.
Yeah.
She finds him dead, and Gates is there, and he's like confronting her.
Yes.
This is where it kind of spirals, and she's like, "I'm Sarah Gates."
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's my dad.
These are memories of mine. They're not dreams of mine.
And like my mom is really my aunt who rescued me, and she's like explaining all of this to Toby, thinking like, Gates has returned to kill me.
Yeah,
He's come back.
The guy from the Possessor movie, like you said, I'm his daughter.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that didn't die, and now he's back to get me.
Yes. So, you know what? I mean, I
would have gone to tell someone.
Yes. And then it's like the guy she tells, he just disappears.
Right, Toby.
Yeah, Toby just disappears, fell into the basement and just gone.
Gone.
So Maggie's wandering around
again because there's no electricity.
Yeah, so she's got a flashlight, just like looking, trying to find anyone. She runs into Gates.
Right.
Power comes back on, and she's strapped into a chair.
Yeah.
In Gates / the killer's little hideout spot.
Yeah, like this lab that he's been making these masks in.
Yeah.
So that's what he's been doing. He's been killing these people and then making masks of their faces. Yeah. So whenever you saw them, it was him in. Now I don't know how he changed his body size and shape, but whatever.
Right.
Turns out, who was the killer?
Toby. Just like the Scream movies. Like it was a friend.
Yeah.
And it was like the new goofy friend too, like
is the one
you did not see it coming.
No, also kind of implausible. Like, how'd you get all this put together? Like, So Toby, turned out he was a child at the Possessor showing when the theater went up in flames, and he was badly burned at that showing. So he's been wearing a mask as Toby. All right. Turns out Toby's mom used to be in Gates's cult. She was killed. Toby blames Maggie and Suzanne because apparently that was true-ish, I guess.
Yeah.
I never really picked up on what, like, was Maggie part of Gates's family? I don't know.
I think so.
So he blames Maggie and Suzanne being the aunt. Because Suzanne did rescue Maggie from the fire. But Toby wasn't rescued from the fire. No, he didn't die, but he was burned.
Right.
So I'm going to get revenge on you by doing the same ending to Possessor. Only on stage. Only this time it's going to work. I'm going to kill you guys in front of everybody. I'm going to burn the theater down. And it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so the only thing at this point missing is Suzanne, who he then wheels out
in a full body cast.
Yeah, like it's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only two people left from like the movie marathon, Cheryl and Joni. Now, if you watch this movie, these characters are identifiable.
Yes.
I do feel that every person in the film that was working on the movie marathon was unique enough to be identifiable.
Most definitely.
You won't recognize them by name necessarily. Like Cheryl and Joni, one of them was like the nurse. The other one was
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, she was the black girl. Yeah. I just don't know which name goes with which person. So they come across Mark, and they're kind of tending to him because he's been injured. Joy shows up, who it's kind of a fun little scene that doesn't mean anything to the movie. Joy shows up mad at Mark for ditching her.
But Joy ditched Mark and was with this bigger, bulkier guy who now the Odor movie is playing.
Yes,
the stench and the smell of dead body has come out. So this big guy who looks like, oh man, who's the guy on Nickelodeon that Johnny Bravo? Like that's kind of what he reminds me of, minus the hair. Like he's just this big
guy.
But then he's got this nose plug, so he's like, "You're gonna come for me?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like talking like that.
It's just goofy. There's just some humor here, but
yeah.
So Mark is fine. He runs back in the theater to find Maggie.
Yeah.
And Toby, because Joy trying to get back at Mark told Mark, oh, Maggie left with that Toby guy. Like, they're together. So Mark is like, well, I better go figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Joni is now missing. She's been tending to Mark, so she's behind her part. She's supposed to be pumping out the smells.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, there's almost too many characters in the movie.
Yeah.
Because we come across Leon, who really hasn't had much to do.
No.
But he goes in the bathroom and he's met by Leon.
Yeah.
Because again, we now know Toby has masks of all these people.
Mm-hmm.
So Leon runs into himself at the urinal. He goes in to pee, and then Toby as Leon steps in and like pees on his leg. Then they get in a fight. But Toby locks Leon in a stall.
Yeah, and I guess those stalls didn't have openings on the bottom.
No. So drops in like a smoke bomb. Leon passes out. There's an explosion. Leon dies. But we still have a Leon because it's Toby.
Mm-hmm.
So Toby goes back to the booth because Joni was headed there to do her part for the stench. Toby, dressed as Leon, goes to meet with her because he's going to kill her. Like, he's going to kill Joni because he's got to kill them all.
Yeah.
He doesn't end up killing Joni because Joni thinks she's talking to Leon.
And she's confessing her love for Toby.
She's smitten with Toby.
Yeah, and she just doesn't know. And meanwhile, Toby as Leon's like, I got my own problems to worry about.
Yeah, it's kind of a touching moment.
Yeah.
Because it really adds a little bit of humanity to Toby's character, that he's out for vengeance, but he's still human to where, like, again, when Joni's just like, but I really care a lot for Toby. And he's like, I can't kill you now. Like, because I just want to be loved.
Yeah.
So like you said, he storms out because he's got murders to set up. So Mark, again, who left the theater completely to go to Toby's apartment because he thought he was with Maggie, ends up at Toby's apartment to find out he's been kicked out.
Yeah, like he's in the process of getting evicted, and the landlord's like, I should kill you for being friends with him.
Yeah, like this guy's a joke.
Yeah.
So Mark gets like all of the tea spilled right here. Like this is that like typical 80s, 90s horror film part where, in case you fell asleep for 20 minutes, we're going to lay out all of the details. Mark now realizes, going through Toby's apartment, seeing all of the newspaper articles plastered to the wall, pictures of the facial reconstruction, pictures of Maggie, like all of these things. Mark realizes Toby's behind all this.
Yes.
Even though up to this point, Mark doesn't know anybody's dead. Like, that's the thing that's kind of odd. Like, with the exception of Maggie, nobody has seen anything out of the ordinary. Because all of these dead people come back with masks as masks. So Mark is like, I got to go back and save Maggie. You don't even really know she's in trouble, kind of.
Right.
But he's the hero, so he's got to. Rushes back to the theater, climbs through a window, and he finds that final piece is going up live right now. Toby, as Lanyard Gates, has Maggie drugged. She's unable to move. He's doing all this on stage. Of course, at this film marathon, everything has been prefaced with there's interactivity going on. So when you have this on stage, if you're a film watcher, like if you're one of the attendees, you're like, this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've seen a giant mosquito. We've seen buzzer seats. Like, this is fine. This is normal. And so we get the final showdown. Maggie's begging to be saved. Everybody believes it's just part of the show. Mark zip lines himself onto the stage with his belt.
Yeah.
Which causes the mosquito to just swing around. It ends up stabbing Toby, killing him. Mark saves the day. Everybody cheers. And that's the end of Popcorn. It's such a goofy movie.
Yeah.
I did enjoy it.
It is, but it's good.
I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy this movie.
Last week we forgot to grade the
movie.
I
just thought of that. I'm like, we didn't even grade last week's movie.
So I'll start. I'll grade this movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it an A just because, like, through this podcast, I realized, like, the Scream, like, line is, like, one of my favorite.
That's yours, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It's become, like, one of my favorite movies. So I really like this in the fact that it was set up very similar to Scream.
And coming out, like, this movie came out several years before the first one.
Yeah.
Did this movie impact Scream? No, I wouldn't say that much. But it definitely has the ingredients there. You got a group of teens. You've got some backstory that's not revealed until later. You've got trust in somebody that you probably shouldn't. That you find out later you shouldn't. You've got all the ingredients there. That definitely makes sense. So an A from you. What the heck? I'm going to give it an A too. I enjoyed this film. It's a movie, like I said. It's been, good Lord, 33 years since it's come out. But it's a movie that I've been probably wanting to see off and on for the better part of 33 years. So I finally got a chance to watch it. It didn't disappoint. I did enjoy this movie. What character would you identify most with in this movie?
Man, that's a hard one. If you know, you can go first. Let me think on this for a second.
Probably not Toby, but one of the other male film students. Okay. Like I not anyone in particular, because honestly, between Davis, Leon, and Bud, they were all pretty much the same character. They were just involved. Yes. But like that would be me. Like I would like to be part of something like this. I wouldn't consider myself the hero because I'm too much of a film nerd to be Mark's role. Mark was just there as a fan. If there was a movie marathon going on and I had an opportunity to be a part of it, I would be a part of it. So that's where I would fill in, is one of Bud Leon Davis, somewhere in there. So that's where I would fall for sure. How about you?
I'm gonna say Maggie because for some reason, like, I don't even realize, and I'm always getting myself into something. Like, good, bad, I don't know. But I just feel like Maggie very just, like, unknowingly got herself into something bad. And, again, like, she had no clue. And I feel like that happens to me quite often. Like, just weird things.
Yeah, just like this, it's just, if it's not one thing, it's another. This movie, there was a piece of this film that was kind of odd. This movie was filmed completely in Jamaica. which is why there was so much like reggae Jamaica music.
Okay.
Just because that's where they were, and those are the musicians that they had. And so it's went through a couple of directors. It went through a couple of leads as well. The guy who directed this movie was not the original director. End up the third director. And then like the second lead. Did you ever see the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yes.
Okay. The older sister in that movie, because you got the like the science nerd kids, and then you got the neighbor kids. The old the daughter, she was originally going to be the lead in this movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. She retired from acting in the 90s. I'm reading her Wikipedia here. She retired from acting to join a circus. Yeah. She retired to join a circus-style entertainment troupe. You do you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was also in Young and the Restless for 30 episodes in the mid-'80s.
Wow.
And then it's like, you know what? If I've been on Young and the Restless, I can work in a circus.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is Popcorn. It's your week. What are we going to watch next week?
Okay, so I had 3 movies that I could not decide on. Honestly, like all just a range like from the 90s to 2013. But I think I'm going to pick the one in the middle just because I love Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
So we are going to go with Stephen King's 1408.
As soon as you said Stephen King, I'm like, you're talking 1408. Have you seen this movie before?
I have not, but like I love like Pulp Fiction, Glass, Split, Coach Carter. I'm like, I love Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, I even like the new Garfield movie, and he's in that.
Fair enough.
So I have to like this one, right?
Yes.
I mean, so
not a big role. He doesn't have a big role in this one.
That's okay.
But he is in there. This movie can be streamed on Starz, as well as Apple TV, Amazon Video, like all your rental places. Mm-hmm. But it is streaming on Starz if you have Starz. Okay. I have been reading a lot this year.
And you've been doing a lot of Stephen King books, I realize.
I have. I've done a lot of Stephen King. Let me look at my Goodreads real quick. I am currently in the middle of my 27th Stephen King book of the year. I'm reading a Graveyard Night Shift. It's a collection of short stories, and so I haven't gotten to 1408 yet. I have seen this movie a few times. I do really like this movie. Kind of a fun little spin. Nothing happened, at least to our knowledge, but my daughter wanted to go to a concert. So a couple of weeks ago, we went up to Lollapalooza in Chicago.
Okay.
Took her to see Conan Gray and Melanie Martinez, both great shows. She had a really great time. And we went up as a family. We hit Great America on Saturday and then the concert on Sunday. Well, my wife and son stayed at the hotel while we were at the theater. We stayed at the Congress Plaza Hotel, which is right across the street from Grant Park in Chicago, where the theater was held. So we literally just walked to the hotel. Now, 1408 is about a haunted hotel.
Okay.
Yeah. You probably see where I'm going here.
Yes.
And the Congress Plaza Hotel is supposedly one of the most haunted hotels in the nation.
Oh.
Does give off creepy vibes on the inside because it just looks. It's a very old hotel, but it looks old. Like a lot of ornate architecture, and you're walking down the hallways. It just felt like even my wife said as we were going to our room. Now, she didn't know that it was a haunted hotel.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't say anything at the time because I'm like, I'm leaving you guys here for several hours while we go to the concert.
Yeah.
But as we're walking to our room, she even says, she goes, this place gives me Shining vibes. And I just let it go. I'm like, oh, yeah, I could see that. And long story short, we went to the concert. It was a great show. We got back to the hotel around 11. We had rented a room for the night. We were going to drive home the next morning. We got back, and it's just the vibe. We ended up just leaving like that. We didn't stay overnight. We left. We got a cab back to the car, left Chicago at like midnight to drive home.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was on our way home that the kids were asleep in the back. And that's when I revealed to my wife that I'm like, yeah, that hotel's pretty haunted, I guess. And she was just like, you didn't say anything? I'm like, why on earth would I? I told her, I said, here's the thing. Originally,
you wouldn't have stayed there.
Well, originally they weren't even part of the plans. Ella and I were going to go up to the concert and stay overnight and come home. And then we're like, we'll just make a weekend of it for the family. Yeah. And so like, you weren't even part of the plans. So, and so it was, let's see if it was any tie-in. But yeah, Congress Plaza Hotel is pretty haunted. Supposedly. Whether you believe that kind of stuff or not.
But if you go in hearing that, like you're already going to start.
Oh, exactly.
Feeling vibes.
But yeah, so I didn't mention it to her for a very obvious reason. And we obviously got out of there unscathed, but she's like, I'm never staying in that hotel. I'm like, well, that stinks. Because that means if we ever go back to Lollapalooza, we're going to have to get a room somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't. Like, it is what it is. So I was telling her, and of course she went to work and was telling her coworkers, and they're just like, he didn't tell you? And I'm like, what? Like, I'm not the bad guy here. Like, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people stay in that hotel. It's not like every one of them has a story.
Right.
You know, like, 4 or 5 people over history have had a story to tell, and now you're like, well, that's it. It's like, if that's the case, we'll never fly or drive either, because a car crashed once. Like, so, but yeah, 1408 is about a haunted hotel room. John Cusack, Samuel Jackson, very good movie. And I'll check that off my Stephen King watch list, because it's kind of what I've been doing. And it's what I need to get back into now that the kids are in school, because they won't be around. Is I've been reading these books, and then I want to watch the movie to draw comparisons. So
I like that.
But short stories are tough though, because they make movies based on the short stories.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that was like a 20-page short story that you made into an 1.5-hour film. And I'm like, okay, man, it didn't take me that long to read it. Now I got to watch the whole thing. But no, I like that pick, 1408. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your first watch.
Yes. So. I mean, I'm not going to be disappointed, I guarantee.
Nah, you'll be fine.
I fell in love with Samuel L. Jackson watching 187.
Another good movie.
Wow. Like, I remember I was flipping the channels and it was on. I didn't even watch the beginning at first, and I was just like, I love him.
Yeah, very.
People talk about how soothing Morgan Freeman is. No, forget Morgan Freeman. I want Samuel L. Jackson to read me a book. And yeah.
You know how old he is?
No.
Any guesses?
Gosh, I would say at least in his 60s.
75.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He'll be 76 this year. Good for him.
There you go. Yeah.
I believe he's also one of the highest grossing actors of all time. Like the movies he's been in.
He is collectively grossed over $27 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he is the highest grossing actor of all time. Yep.
It says here on Wikipedia, it says 14 billion.
Oh, okay. We must be looking at different Wikipedia things, because
I'm looking at list of highest grossing actors.
Okay, and I'm looking at the Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, this list only includes leading roles and lead ensemble roles. So that's probably why. There's a lot of movies he's been in, especially early in his career, where like he just was a small role.
Yeah.
So that they're not counting it on this list.
Yeah.
Yeah, $14.6 billion, 66 films. Number 2, Scarlett Johansson.
I love her.
$14.5 billion from 52 films. And then Robert Downey Jr. And then Zoe Saldana, Chris Pratt. It's just crazy to think that Chris Pratt is the 5th highest grossing actor of all time.
Yeah.
Like, he's only been in 23 movies. his average, Chris Pratt's average film averages $605 million at the box office.
Wow.
Now, granted, Avengers Endgame was almost $3 billion worth. But good for those guys. Good for them. All of them. Oh, that's just crazy. 9 of the top 10 highest grossing actors are Marvel actors, except for Tom Cruise at number 6.
Yeah, and that's wild.
Yeah, because even Zoe Saldana was Gamora, and so if you look at all the here you go. If you look at all their roles, Samuel L. Jackson is $27 billion. Stan Lee is number 1 at $30 billion, but that's almost not fair because he just has cameos in those movies. But they're all the Marvel movies, so does that
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Samuel L. Jackson, $27 billion. Good for those guys. Me, I don't have that kind of clout. We don't pull in that kind of dough with this podcast. No. So, all right. Well, 1408 for next weekend. I think it's a great pick. One that we'll definitely have to record within the next month. But social media wise, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where you can find us. Drop us a comment down below. What's your favorite Stephen? No, better yet, what do you have any haunted hotel or haunted house stories? We'd love to hear about it. We need to decide also if we're going to make another run in October.
Yes.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I do.
There's another podcast. They do a great job called Nightmare on Film Street. And they every year they reveal a movie a day, a theme for they call it Halloween Horror Movie Challenge or Halloween Horror Movie Marathon. They call it a 31-day horror challenge where they, instead of picking a film, they give you like a category.
Okay.
And so, for instance, looking at it here, they just released it yesterday. Like October 1st would be a horror anthology. October 2nd, a Tim Burton movie. 3 is a revenge film. 4, Down in the Underground. So each day has a theme, and whether or not you want to stick to it is up to you, of course. But
That's pretty neat.
Or we just do what we did last year, and
true. I did like what we did last year.
Yeah. I don't even remember exactly how did we play it? Did we?
So we did shuffle, your pick, my pick, shuffle, your pick, my pick, scratch off.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I do like that. So we should probably start putting together.
Yeah.
Because
we could start that and then put it out there if anyone wants to watch the movies as we watch them.
Because here we are. We're halfway through August already, almost at the end of August.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. What's on your shirt?
Oh. It says just the tip. I promise.
Okay. I saw the just the tip part, and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, but that looks like the top of Michael Myers' head.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Good for you.
Because I really was thinking about we've not done any. How many movies does he have?
Oh, we've only done 1. Maybe.
Yeah.
Did we do Halloween 2?
Yeah. No.
Okay, we've just done 1.
So that was in my mind of doing one of his, but then I was like, I really want to watch 1408.
That's fair. But yeah, we'll definitely have to start putting together.
Yeah.
I'll share something with you through Google. We'll put a form together, and then we'll have that reference instead of paper calendars that we lose. So, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for another week of Deducation. We will be back next week to discuss 1408. Until then, you guys have a good rest of your week. I'm on Mike. Almost said I'm Oz for my other show. I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.